My friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Welcome to D&D Optimized, the show where each week we take a deep dive into one specific, sometimes two, character builds in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and we crunch numbers, and we do our best to make them as powerful as possible for the role that we've chosen for that character. Welcome. My name is Colby, and I'm super happy to have you, and I'm super excited about the episode today. Before I get into it, a quick announcement. For those who are artists, we made an announcement. My friend Preston, aka Fuzzy Squirrel, is running a little contest that you can check out on the subreddit down below, where we're looking for an artist to submit artwork, and we're going to randomly pick a winner and then sort of display the artwork as a background in our next DMs episode, sliding into my DMs, and mention you and hopefully drive a little bit of traffic your way. So if you're interested in having your artwork showcased, please go to the subreddit and check it out and send us a submission. We'd love to see it. All right. We're going to go long today. I already know it, so I'm just going to do my best to jump right into things here. I did a poll a couple of weeks ago that asked what you guys wanted me to do my next build on, and the winner was a summoner, like a necromancer or something, some other kind of summoner. I was originally planning on doing a necromancer, but the more that I dug into it, the more that I looked at it, the more it made me really want to do a necromancer build as a team up with another character class that I think would make it even better and cooler and more powerful. So I'm going to hold off on the necromancer for now. So instead, what I decided to do, as you know, because you've seen the title of this video, was to create a sort of themed build here that I haven't done a lot of, but I've gotten a lot of requests for something like this, particularly from another one of my DMs and friends, Corey. And that is to do a Pokémon trainer-like build. I am a Pokemon noob, and it will become probably very apparent as we talk. I'm not actually going to talk a lot about Pokemon here, but what I want to do is kind of similar to what I did with my Sorcerer with the Magic Touch episode a few weeks ago, is to sort of intentionally give myself some limits, some constraints, just all in the name of story and flavor and roleplay and theme for this character. And this is the restriction that I'm going with for this character. It is that this particular character can do no damage to an enemy themselves. They are, and whether through weapon attacks, spells, whatever, they can do no damage to the enemy themselves. They are reliant 100% on their companions and their pets and things to do the damage for them. And thus the concept of it being sort of like a Pokemon trainer. The difference, obviously, is, well, among other things, is going to be that they're not like, I believe, most Pokemon trainers just throwing out one Pokemon at a time and saying, I choose you. It's more like, I choose all of you. And we want, the goal is to get sort of as many pets and to buff them and make them as powerful as I can find ways to do so, and have them sort of defend me and attack for me and things like that. Now, I don't know why this particular character can do no harm. I don't know why they can't fight. Maybe they're a coward. Maybe they swore an oath to a god or promised a dying parent or something that they would take a vow of non-violence. I don't know. That's for you to figure out and make part of your story. But like all of my builds, my hope is that you'll sort of take the concepts that I present and make it your own. You might decide that you're going to have this character make an occasional attack when in a dire circumstance, or cast spells, or something like that. And if so, that's fine. I'm going to go pretty multi-class heavy, and I know some of you don't love that, and I apologize. I don't rarely go more than 2 classes in a build. Sometimes I do, and this is going to be one of those that gets a little, it's not crazy, but it's a little bit. Because I'm trying, again, to get as many pets as I can and have good ways to buff them too. You might not like that. You might decide that because of the way that I build it, the pets are a little too squishy, or there's too many multi-classes, or something like that, and that's totally fine. I'm hoping, as always, to kind of explore the realm of what's possible and really kind of push the boundaries of, how much sustained damage per round could we get out of this build, and really explore the limits of that, and then leave it up to you to make changes and tweaks and potentially sacrifice some damage in favor of less multi-classing or more tankiness for your pets or whatever. I just want to explore and, theory craft and do all of those things that we like to do. So a couple other notes. I really view this character thematically as, working with kind of individual companions and pets and developing a relationship with them. They are my friends. They are my allies. We have a bond. And so for that reason, I'm avoiding a lot of the crazy, mostly warlocky things like, use planar ally to summon a really powerful celestial and then use planar binding to force it to serve you kind of thing. It's much more mutual than that. And, my pets, I think of them as my pets in this build, and they love me and they want to protect me, and I love them, and I'm grateful to them for all that they do for me, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the theme, the flavor, the feel that I'm going for. There's plenty of great options if you want to be like a summon a demon and make it serve you kind of thing. That's not what we're doing here. Also, for the same reason, I'm going to be leaving out, and this will surprise some of you, I think, a lot of the conjure large herds of beasts type spells, or fae type spells. We'll discuss that a bit later, but just kind of know that going in. I'm really looking for pets and not large groups of animals and fae that sort of fight for me, but that I don't have much of a bond or relationship with, right? So anyway, with the preamble out of the way, I present episode 28, The Pokémon Trainer. Or perhaps, if you're not into Pokemon, The Walking Menagerie. That's a working title. Let's jump in. All right, at level 1, we are going to start off as a ranger, surprising no one. Our first goal is going to try and get to Beastmaster as quickly as possible so we can pick up our first pet or companion. Ranger gives us some nice tankiness, some additional utility that will come in handy, and I think it just fits the flavor of the character really well. This character loves the outdoors and loves to commune with nature and animals. So for your race, I recommend Custom Lineage, surprising no one as well. There is a fairly important feat for us to grab, and that +2 to a single ability score is nice. If you don't want to go Custom Lineage, my favorite alternative would be a Furbolg. They fit really great thematically, I think. They've got a very nice sort of one with nature vibe to them, and you get some nice utility spells and a better ability score bump. You probably will be foregoing one of your pets that if you go this route, though, in the Find Familiar spell that we are going to get from a feat. So for the free feat, we want Find Familiar. We don't want to have to multi-class into Wizard to get it. And Find Familiar gives us our first pet. It can't attack, as we know, but it can be a great scout. It can also help our other pets in combat by taking the help action and give them advantage. And as I've talked about many times before, my favorite choice here is the owl, because it can fly in and out of combat without provoking opportunity attacks. So I like to take that familiar, fly in, help one of your companions anyway, and thereby give them advantage on the companion's attack, and then fly away to safety. So we will have our very first companion or Pokemon. We'll call it Hoot Hoot, and we're happy. Now, the question is, which feat do you take to get that Find Familiar spell? We've got a couple of options. There is the Magic Initiate Wizard feat, which will give you a wizard spell and then a couple of cantrips. So you can go that route. If there's some wizard cantrips that you think you really want, go for it. Or we could take the Ritual Caster, which gives us 2 spells as long as they have the ritual tag for them, and Find Familiar does. I'm going to recommend Ritual Caster. I like it a little better. I feel like it would give us another cool ritual spell. Speak with Animals, for example, which is super on point thematically. But, look over both and you decide which one is best for you. As an aside, see if you can convince your dungeon master to let you get the Find Familiar spell by taking the Fey Touched feat instead. If you can, that is way better. Fey Touched gives us, it's a new feat from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, right? It's perfect thematically. We've been exposed to the Feywild, and it gives us a +1 to our wisdom score, which would then let us start with an 18 wisdom. We're not going to be able to do that otherwise. And you basically get the Misty Step spell and one other first level spell of your choice, but it says that it has to come from the Divination or Enchantment school, which feels super arbitrary and dumb to me, because the Find Familiar the spell is in the Conjuration school of magic, and therefore rules as written does not work. So I can't assume that you'll be able to do this. I have to believe that most reasonable DMs out there would be fine with you taking Find Familiar instead of a spell from Divination or Enchantment, but I don't know that for sure, so I can't make that assumption when I'm crunching numbers. So moving on to ability scores, assuming point buy, as always, I'm going to say start with a 14 wisdom +2 from your racial bonus, so you'd have a 16. Do a 15 constitution, a 13 dex, and a 13 charisma. Yes, we are a little mad, a little multiple ability score dependent, thanks to the multi-classing that we need to do. Fortunately for us, we don't need our ability scores as much as some other classes. Yes, they benefit us for sure, but it doesn't hurt us quite as much to miss out on them, and you will see why as we go along. Equipment. Pretty standard stuff. Make sure you get scale mail and a shield. That will put your armor class at a 17, right? 14 for the armor, +2 for the shield, +1 for your dex bump. But note that for levels 1 and 2, we don't have any companions that can do damage for us. So we're either going to have to break the rules on the first couple of levels, and I mean, that's fine. Work it into your story if you want to. Maybe you are making weapon attacks for those first couple of levels, but right before you hit level 3, you have some sort of traumatic experience, whether it's a vision from the goddess of peace or, some violent act that traumatizes you, and you at that point swear off ever committing violence against a living creature by your own hand again, or something like that. If you're going to go that route, talk it over with your DM. Great opportunity for a fantastic story moment in the game. Otherwise, if you're going to be the peacekeeper from get-go and not do any harm, you're going to be running into combat and maybe taking the dodge action or using the help action to assist your allies, and just trying to be a meat shield or damage soak, and it's going to be a little tough for the first couple of levels, but fortunately you tend to get through them fairly quickly. So Rangers get some features at level 1. They're pretty much just utility based. I'm actually going to recommend that you take the old school favored enemy as opposed to favored foe from Tasha's, just because the favored foe really just benefits you when you're making attacks, and since we're not going to be, I'm assuming, it doesn't do us much good unless you can convince your DM to let you apply favored foe to an attack that one of your pets or companions makes, which they might do. But otherwise, favored enemy, it gives you some utilities that we're not going to get into in the interest of time. And same thing for Deft Explorer. I would take Deft Explorer new from Tasha's. It replaces the old Natural Explorer from the Player's Handbook version of the Ranger class. I just think Deft Explorer gives you a little bit better utility. Again, not going to get into it. Check them both out. Pick the one that you think makes the most sense for you. At level 2, we get a fighting style. Defense is really the only one that doesn't enhance your attacks. So that's what we'll take. As long as you're wearing armor, you get a +1 to your armor class. Not too bad. And now we're at an 18 AC, which is pretty decent for a level 2 character. You do get first level ranger spells as well. This is definitely the first and maybe the last time that I won't recommend taking Hunter's Mark as a ranger. Again, unless you can convince your DM to let you apply that bonus damage to an attack that your pet makes. Absorb Elements is a nice option for us for defense. It will, as a reaction, you cast it, and it lets you be resistant to the damage that you take, fire, cold, lightning, acid, etc. So that's a nice way to increase our own survivability. Pick up Cure Wounds. It's great to let you, be able to heal in a pinch when you need it. There are a lot of other great animal-focused spells that are super on point for roleplay purposes that I'm not really going to get into. All right, at level 3, Rangers get a feature. I'd go with the Primal Awareness feature from Tasha's. I feel like it's a little more useful for the free spell that you get, Speak with Animals, but it's up to you. But we also get our Ranger archetype, our Ranger subclass, which is the main reason why we are here. So we're going to go with the Beastmaster archetype, which again lets us gain a companion that accompanies us on our adventure and fights beside us. Now, I will admit, when I was first putting this build together, my initial plan was to go with the old school Ranger companion and pick up a giant poisonous snake, because they do really good damage when you only are using them for a single attack in a turn and you don't care about giving up your action for it. The giant poisonous snake damage is superior to the primal companion damage that we get new with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. But I finished the build and I was looking back over it and reviewing it, and the reality is that the giant poisonous snake was by far the weakest link with all of my companions. It was really squishy. It only has 12 hit points at this level, and maybe more punishingly, when it dies, it's really difficult to get back. You have to resurrect it, which is expensive, right? Or go find another giant poisonous snake. You can traipse off into the jungle or go to the nearby zoo where they're keeping giant poisonous snakes. It was really crippling, because the pet is surely going to perish at some point unless you have the absolute kindest, most snake-loving dungeon master in the whole world. And if you do, then feel free to take the giant poisonous snake and enjoy a small damage increase. But for us, we're going with the primal companion new to Tasha's, specifically the Beast of the Land, which has some nice benefits and actually has some really fantastic synergy with the next pet that we're going to get. And when I discovered that, I kind of went, okay, you know what? we'll go this route. So the Primal Companion's great because it's definitely tankier. It has 20 hit points instead of 12, so that's over 60% more HP, right? And their armor class is decent. It's 15 at this point, only one worse than the snake was. And that scales with your proficiency bonus. More importantly, though, the Primal Companion, if it dies, can be resurrected by you for just a first level spell, or if you're out of spell slots, after finishing a long rest. So it's just much less punishing, and it just worries me a lot less, for the times if and when, this pet perishes. You've got to have a way to bring them back fairly easily, because generally speaking, most of the pets and companions that we're going to be having are a little bit fragile. So again, with this Primal Companion, it does let you choose their appearance. I'm going with a boar. It's a beast of the land, so maybe we got ourselves a swinub here, right? And they get a decent attack. It's +5 to hit. Your spell modifier +5 to hit. It does 1d8 plus 2 damage plus our proficiency bonus, which is 2 for now. And they get a nice little charge feature. So this is a fairly common ability in a lot of beasts, but if they move 20 feet in a straight line at the enemy and then make their attack, if the attack lands, they get an extra 1d6 of damage. And the target has to make a strength save or they get knocked prone, which is great for everybody, because when something's prone, melee attacks against it get advantage, right? So use this when you can right now, and remember it for later. We're going to be using it a lot more frequently. Okay, at level 4. Our character at this point in their story, they have gone even deeper down the commune with nature path and further away from the martial path that most rangers tend to embrace. So we're going all in on the one with nature and taking some druid levels. So as a level 1 druid, you get some spells. Take whatever cantrips suit you. I would pick up as a first level spell, at least grab Healing Word, so you can heal from range, probably heal your beast companion. If you're okay with using control spells, Entangle is a great option. It doesn't do damage, but it will kind of hold enemies in place. It's good, at least for this level. It requires concentration. Personally, for me, if I were playing this character, I would really want to play them as, like, I'm just a coach or like a Pokemon trainer. Like, I can shout words of encouragement and maybe even hurl insults, but I'm not otherwise getting involved in the combat. That's me. You do what you want to do. At level 5, we are a Druid 2. And druids at level 2 get the Wild Shape feature. Now, for most druids, this is a defining ability. It lets you turn into a beast twice per short rest. The beast has a max challenge rating of 1/4 for now. They can't fly, they can't swim. The problem is, the main reason most people want to transform into a beast is, to turn into like a bear or a wolf and go into combat. We're not going into combat. So outside of utility purposes, this doesn't do a lot for us. However, we will be using our Wild Shape very frequently for something else. Because at level 2, druids also get their Druidic Circle, their subclass. And we are going Circle of Wildfire. You thought I was going to say Shepherd, didn't you? You're wrong. We're not going Shepherd. We're going Wildfire. Here's the thing. The Circle of the Shepherd is a great option, especially if you're going to only be summoning beasts and fae as your companions. What I like about Wildfire is that it gives us another companion. It's an elemental. It's a little fiery spirit, the Wildfire Spirit. We can summon it by taking an action to expend a use of our Wild Shape feature. You determine its appearance. So in my mind, this dude is totally a Flareon. But when you first summon it, each creature within 10 feet of you, within 10 feet other than you, has to make a dex save or they take 2d6 fire damage, so it's a nice little initial AoE burst. But then you can use a bonus action to command it to do a couple of different things. Well, you can command it to take any action that it can take, but two things in its stat block. They can make a ranged weapon attack, which is nice, but my favorite, and for our purposes, is the second action that they have access to, which is called Fiery Teleportation. The spirit and each willing creature within 5 feet of it teleport up to 15 feet away to an unoccupied space, and then every creature within 5 feet of where they were when they left takes, they got to make a dex save or they take some fire damage. Because it's relatively easy to find, a couple of enemies standing within 10 feet of each other that you could kind of get up in between, and then teleport away. I'm going to assume when we crunch numbers that you're hitting 2 enemies with this little fire damage as you blink away. The best part about this pet, though, and the main reason why we want it over other subclasses that have pets that you might think would be stronger, is this. So you remember that our primal companion of the land has that charge feature. Wouldn't it be nice if that primal beast could get that extra damage on a charge every single turn? But wait, Colby, you might say. That's not going to work very well, because if our pet tries to leave the attack range of an enemy that they were attacking, they're going to take an opportunity attack and they might die. But let me introduce you to my little wildfire spirit friend, who can run up and blink that primal beast away, getting them safely out of the range of an opportunity attack, and let them then make their charge attack every turn. In order to make this work, it's a little bit complicated, but it's totally doable. So let's go over what that would look like. On your wildfire spirit's turn, which happens immediately after yours, you just have it run up next to the primal beast and the enemy or enemies that they're next to, and instead of do anything, they just ready their action. They ready the fiery teleportation action. As a reminder, any creature can do, they can ready their action as they're on their turn, right? It basically just means that they say, okay, when this specific trigger happens, then as a reaction, I'm going to do X, right? And if you do that as your action, essentially, then great, your turn's over. And then when that trigger happens, you can take your reaction and do the thing that you were readying, right? And so, in our case, the little Flareon is going to run up next to the swine nub, next to the primal beast, and an enemy or two, and then just ready their action for, the trigger is going to be when you say go, or Flareon, or whatever. Then, on the round's going to go, and when it's your turn again, you simply shout that word, go. It's going to blink away, doing damage to everybody that it left in its wake, and now your swine nub gets to act on your turn. It can back up a few feet if it needs to. It's got 40 feet of move speed, and run in and make the charge attack. And then again, the wildfire spirit goes immediately after, does the same thing, runs up, readies its action, and waits for the next round, and you just rinse repeat. And that's really cool, and a nice way to get a little bit of extra damage out of your primal companion. So, as long as your Flareon, your wildfire spirit, doesn't die before the turn comes around again and it has a chance to blink away, then this should work just fine, rules as written. It's just a little bit complicated, but not too bad. So, at level 6, we are a Druid 3, and we have 2nd level spells. say hello to our fourth pet companion. We've got our familiar Hoot Hoot. We've got our primal companion Swinub. We've got our wildfire spirit Flareon. And now we get the Summon Beast spell. As I've talked about before, these new summon spells from Tasha's, I should probably at some point stop calling them new, right? Tasha's has been out for 3 months as of this recording. They are so great because the creature that you summon takes its turn, makes its attack without requiring anything from you as far as your action or bonus action are concerned. It just obeys your verbal commands, and it requires your concentration. So this is what we're going to be using our concentration for from now on. Summon Beast summons a small bestial spirit. Like I said, it will obey your verbal commands. You get to decide what it looks like. So how about a cougar or a panther? I'm thinking a Persian. And I'm going to assume that you're taking the land version. You could go air or water. But with the land bestial summon beast spirit, if they're standing next to another ally, they have pack tactics, which basically gives them advantage on their attack. So just make sure that they're standing next to another ally, which really your pets should always be doing, again, to hopefully draw the fire away from them, right? Let's see. It gets to make a number of attacks equal to half of the spell level. So as soon as we get to fourth level spell slots, it'll be able to make 2 attacks per turn. Right now it's just 1. And it's your spell attack modifier to hit, which is a +6 now because our proficiency bonus went up. And then it does a 1d8 of damage +4 plus the spell's level, again, which is 2 for us right now. Remember, though, to always upcast this spell at the highest spell slot that you have available, because even though it might not get an extra attack unless it's an even-numbered spell, the higher the spell level, the more hit points they have, the higher their AC is, and they get a little extra damage as bonus damage for the attacks that they make. So right now it has 30 hit points and 13 armor class. It's probably our beefiest pet for now. So, damage report. Let's just review really quickly again one more time what combat looks like for you. So on your turn, you use your action to have your primal companion charge into battle, hopefully from 20 feet away. They gain advantage from your Hoot Hoot, from your, I can't even think of the names now, your familiar, thank you, taking the help action, right? Then, as a bonus action, you command the Wildfire Spirit to run up next to at least the Primal Companion and an enemy or two, and ready its action to do fiery teleportation when you give the signal, right? Now, both the Wildfire Spirit and the Summoned Beast, your Persian, take their turn immediately after yours. So you're going to choose which one goes next. It doesn't matter a lot. I mean, I would say, have your Summoned Beast run up, make its attacks, and then the Wildfire runs up and readies its action, right? And then that's it. When it comes around again at the beginning of your turn, you yell go, and your Wildfire Spirit teleports your beast away, and it makes its charge attack, and you rinse and repeat. You don't necessarily have to get everybody away in that teleport. Really just make sure that you're standing next to as many enemies as possible and your primal companion to get them away so that they can then run back in and make their charge attack. So, rinse and repeat. Again, I'm assuming that the Wildfire Spirit is damaging at least 2 enemies. I know that's not always going to happen, but sometimes it'll get more. The Primal Companion is getting its charge bonus every time, and both the Primal Companion and the Summoned Beast are getting advantage, one from the familiar, the other from pack tactics and standing next to an ally. This is going to be super fun. You got 3 pets running in with a 4th coming in to take help action. They're charging in, they're teleporting away, causing mayhem and doing some pretty decent damage. So versus an enemy with a 10 armor class and +0 to their dex save, because that's what we need to calculate for the Flareon, for the Wildfire Spirit damage, right? So a 10 AC and a +0 to their save, you're going to be doing 34 damage per round. And against an enemy with a 15 armor class and a +5 to their save, you're going to be doing 28 damage per round. And you know what? That's not bad. And you might have an enemy that has a 15 armor class but a +0 to their dex save, and then your damage is going to go up, or vice versa. Obviously, this is an imperfect but sort of simplified way to give you a pretty good idea of what kind of damage you can expect round after round from your little menagerie. At level 7, perhaps our character wants to delve deeper into the religious aspect of nature worship. Perhaps you had a vision from the goddess of nature. Perhaps you have become even more dedicated and devoted to the idea of peace. Whatever the reason, we're going to take a single level of a peace cleric here. Here's the thing. Thus far, we don't have a lot of abilities to buff our pets. One big problem is many of the strongest buffs in the game are spells that require concentration, and we're using our concentration for our summoned beast. Enter the Peace Cleric. As you probably know, it was introduced in Tasha's. It's very strong. Some, like Treant Monk, think it's too strong. And one great thing about clerics is they get their subclass or their divine domain at first level. So that's why we're here. There are no spells or cantrips I feel like I need to mention here at Cleric 1. Pick your favorites, but our divine domain will be the Peace domain, and it gives us the Emboldening Bond feature, which is so amazing. I've used it before. As a reminder, it basically functions as the Bless spell, but without requiring a spell slot or concentration, and that's huge for us. With Emboldening Bond as an action, you choose your proficiency bonus number of characters. That's 3 for us right now. And for 10 minutes, you bless them, and as long as they are within 30 feet of one another, of at least one other of themselves, they can add a d4 to their attack rolls, to their ability checks, and their saving throw rolls. It's no more than once per turn. So when your summoned beast gets multiple attacks later, they're only going to be able to add that d4 to one of those attacks. But statistically, that is really, really strong for us. It's for our pets, right? It's worth it for a single level dip, in my opinion, especially because it also buffs their ability to, make saving throws against spells and things like that. And you can do this Emboldening Bond bonus times per day, proficiency bonus times per day. So again, 3 for us right now, which means it should be usable for most, if not all, encounters. I need to hit the pause button again, and I apologize for that. I consider the build at this point to be sort of the core, right? 3 in Ranger, 3 in Druid, and 1 in Peace Cleric. You've got 4 nice little pets, 3 of which actually, make attacks. A good little buff for them, plus some utility and some defensive and healing capabilities for yourself. You're a pretty well-rounded character that does decent damage, all with the help of your friendly little companions. From here, the build could go in many different directions. What I want is to try and get at least one more pet or companion if I can, and or some great ways to buff those pets and companions, or ideally both. Here's the problem. Right now, our action, our bonus action, and our concentration are all spoken for. That doesn't leave us a lot of pet options that don't take one of those things, right? There are some subclasses and things that do give us, there are a few things that we could pursue. Shadow sorcerers get like a dire wolf, a hound of ill omen pet that doesn't require any of those 3 things in order for it to make attacks. Hexblade warlocks get a specter, which is similar. You could just decide, you know what, I'm good with these 4. I want to buff them, make them stronger. So you take ranger levels and or druid levels to increase their hit points and pick up feats and or ASIs for yourself, ability score increases, which we haven't had a single one of yet. You could even go more levels into cleric to get some additional kind of cleric spells and buffs and things, and healing abilities, especially support type abilities. And even with a cleric, you could get the undead, the not raised dead, what's it called? Animate dead, and get yourself a little zombie or skeleton thrall too. And so that's an option. For me personally, I don't worry too much about missing out on those ability score increases or feats from ranger and druid levels, with one exception, which I'll mention later. But not having a real high wisdom score isn't super painful for us right now. Even if our ability score, if our wisdom were capped, it would only add a +2 to hit for the pets that need that. And we got a +2.5 essentially on average with 1 level of Peace Cleric, that D4. And so, I also don't love the idea of going for an undead thrall here. It just sort of goes against my own theme that I'm going for here, which is sort of kind of nature-y, beast and fae focused. But that is an option. Most of you probably would expect me to go further levels into druid here in order to pick up, conjure animals, conjure fae, etc. I'll admit I was tempted. Ultimately, I opted not to go that route for 2 reasons. One, as far as I can tell, most people interpret those spells thus. You pick the number of creatures that are conjured and their challenge rating, and your DM decides what gets summoned. That might not work that way at your table, but I can't make that assumption, and therefore I don't know what creatures are going to get summoned. It could be a variety of things. It's very difficult to crunch numbers for that, right? But then also, too, again, like I've mentioned, my goal here is to really sort of have these individual pets that I develop a bond with, and they're my friends, and having 8 elk or 16 wolves or 24 sprites come in and swarm, your enemies just feels like not that. Not only that, but if you were to go with those spells, you probably should take the Circle of the Shepherd Druid. And now that just feels like a completely different build, right? So if that sounds awesome to you, then you should totally do that. We're going to do something different, and I've explained why. So we are going to go with Bard levels for 2 reasons. One, it gives us access to, I think, the strongest pet that's left in the game that will make attacks without requiring our bonus action, or concentration, and without requiring crazy, demon summoning and magic circles. And it also gives us access to the best remaining buff spells that don't require our concentration. And 3, it gives us a reliable use of our reaction as well, which thus far we haven't really had much of a use for. So at level 8, we're going Bard 1. Our character has done penance or learned what they could from the church, or realized that the way forward was to return to the wild, return to the natural world. They were given a quest by their god. I don't know. It's your story. You need to figure it out. But they've decided to delve deeper into the lore of the natural world. And they feel compelled to tell its story far and wide. So at Bard 1, you get some spells. I would say, focus on things that you can cast out of combat and as rituals and as reactions for now. You also get your Bardic Inspiration, which helps your allies succeed at things, as you all know, but it does require you to use your bonus action. So we're not going to be using it a ton, I don't think, unless you're, giving up your Wildfire Spirits abilities. At level 9, Bard 2, we get Jack of all trades, It helps us be very well-rounded, and I'm kind of glossing over these things, obviously. Song of Rest helps us heal our allies on a short rest, which is great. Important note, at level 9 here, since I'm multiclassing into so many spellcasting classes, I actually have 4th level spell slots right now. Look up the multiclassing spellcaster table to figure out how we got there. I have 4th level spell slots now, even though I'm only a Bard 2 and a Druid 3 and whatever, you know. So that means that if we upcast Summon Beast to add a 4th level spell, it will get 2 attacks on its turn. It will hit slightly harder, and it also has more armor class, a higher armor class, and more hit points, which is great. So be sure to do that. So let's take a look at a damage report for level 9. The improvements that we've seen since our last damage report are we now get an extra 1d4 to at least one attack that our pets all make. We get an extra attack from our summoned beast. We get some small bumps to everyone else thanks to our proficiency bonus going up and our spell slots getting higher. So against an enemy with a 10 armor class or 0 to their dex save, 53 damage per round is what we can expect on average, and against a 16 or a +6, it is 44 damage per round on average. Not bad, right? Not bad at all. At level 10, we are a Bard 3, and we get 2nd level Bard spells. Focus on out of combat, reaction, and ritual spells that look cool. We get to pick our Bard college. Okay, we're going lore Bard for 2 reasons. 1, more magical secrets, and we'll get into that shortly. And 2, cutting words. I love this ability for this character. We don't really have a lot of use for our reaction thus far, but with this, you can use your Bardic Inspiration, which we probably weren't using a lot anyway since it's taking our bonus action to use, as a reaction, and basically it will lower the attack roll or the damage roll that an enemy makes against one of our allies. It's like you're the coach sitting on the sidelines, or even a fan sitting in the stands at a game, and you can't play, but you can yell out once in a while when the opposing team tries to do something, right? You suck, Hayward! Or, hey, bada swing! And once in a while, it might actually make them miss. And it is juicy and delicious. So, yay for cutting words. At level 11, we are a Bard 4, and we get our first ability score increase or feat. At level 11, what in the crap is wrong with you? I forgot these existed. Okay, so there's 2 options here. You can take Wisdom and bump your Wisdom to give your companions a slightly higher chance of landing their damage. Or you could take Resilient Constitution, which is going to buff your Constitution by 1 up to a 16 to give you more hit points, and then let you add your proficiency bonus to your Constitution and therefore concentration saving throws. And this is important. Our hardest hitting companion by far, and especially as you continue to level up, is your not your primal companion, your summoned beast, your Persian, right? And if you lose concentration, it's going to be devastating for you for your damage. Now, I've been assuming that you haven't really been in combat a lot thus far, so I think you're probably safe without getting it until now. But if you find that you are getting attacked a lot and that you are losing concentration a lot, you might want to consider taking this clear back at, I'd say, at level 7. Go Ranger 4 and delay everything else by a level so that you can get that feat and then have a better chance of maintaining concentration. Otherwise, I'd probably take that now. I think it's more important than Wisdom. I mean, you could, I guess, even take this at level 1 for your free feat and pass up Find Familiar, but then we wouldn't have our Hoot Hoot, and that makes me sad. So anyway, do what you need to do. At level 12, you are a Bard 5, and we have the Font of Inspiration feature, which means our Bardic Inspiration resets on a short rest now, which means more hurled insults at our foes. We get 3rd level bard spells, and the one I want to focus on here is one of my favorite things in the world for this build, motivational speech. This is one of my primary reasons for wanting to go bard, although it is available to clerics as well if you'd rather just take cleric levels to get this. So the way motivational speech works is you choose up to 5 creatures and you go Tony Robbins on them. You inspire them to greatness. So it takes 1 minute to give this speech, to cast this spell. And I strongly encourage you to prepare some juicy little tidbits. You don't need a full 60 seconds, but get some bits to actually use in game. And feel free to plagiarize from Theoden or from Henry V or whatever the case may be. But then after that, for 1 hour, everybody that you cast this spell on and you give this speech to gets 5 temporary hit points as a 3rd level spell. You can upcast it for more, and right now we have 5th level spell slots, so potentially up to 15 extra temporary hit points for all of your companions and actually maybe yourself, or a +1. Does it work on yourself? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Anyway, so this is a great way to buff your allies, buff your little pets, keep them safe, because I'm sure that not even the most pet-loving dungeon master in the whole world will be able to, avoid attacking your pets at least once in a while. So it's important to find ways to buff them here, right? Most importantly, is there anything more adorable in the whole freaking world than to imagine you pacing back and forth in front of your little squad of, a boar, a panther, a little fiery hound, a little owl, pounding your fist, pointing at the sky, getting them all riled up while they purr and bark and hoot in response. I submit that there is not. So can someone who has the skills of an artist draw that up and submit it to the Reddit contest that I announced at the beginning? That would be amazing, and it would make me super happy. At level 13, you are a Bard 6. Here we go. So you get Counter Charm, which lets you use your action to keep your allies from being charmed or feared. But this is why we are really here, because now we get to add our 5th and probably final companion to our team. We could fill the whole basketball squad now. All bards get magical secrets at level 10. Lore bards get additional magical secrets at level 6. You get to choose 2 spells from any other class, so long as you have the appropriate level of bard spell levels. I wish it were just spell slots. It has to be bard spells. So, we've got 3rd level bard spells right now. The spell that you will be taking, most importantly, is Find Steed from the Paladin spell list. Now, we've gone over mounted combat ad nauseum in one of my Slide Into My DMs episodes. Check here if I remember to put the link up. I will rehash just one part of it here. So if you have a mount, the rules state that you can either control it and then basically have some extra movement and movement benefits, or you can let it act independently, which essentially means that it will do what it wants, including potentially engaging in combat. Now, we are told that the text of this spell, Find Steed, says that the steed that we summon with this spell is an unusually intelligent, strong, and loyal steed. If you have an instinctive bond with it, and it allows you to fight as a seamless unit in combat, and that we can communicate with it telepathically. I have a very hard time believing that there are many DMs out there that would not allow you to direct this creature in combat, or at the very least that it would, do its best to engage in combat and attack the bad guys that you want it to attack, or that it thinks you want it to attack, right? You can communicate telepathically with it, so you should be able to just tell it that, and it should just do what you tell it to do. That's, to me, how the spell's written. Every single forum thread that I can find on this topic seems to agree with this, and even Jeremy Crawford himself holds this opinion and says this is how he would do it at his table. I understand that's not necessarily rules as written, but again, I feel pretty safe to assume that this is how the steed will function for the vast majority of you. But of course, as always, discuss with your dungeon master beforehand. If they say no, and they're not going to let you do this, and that it's just going to serve as a controlled mount, or that if you let it be independent, it's just going to run away, then I would suggest going with the Shadow Sorcerer instead of the Bard to level 6, so that you can get their Dire Wolf, because it's a pretty good pet. But assuming this will work, the steed that I would choose, you get a choice of steeds here, would be the Warhorse. We'll call it the Ponyta, or maybe even the Mudsdale. I like the look of the Mudsdale personally. Anyway, here's what's great about the Warhorse. Not only does it have a pretty solid attack, it's a +6 to hit for 2d6 plus 4 damage, but it also gets a trampling charge, which says that if it moves in a straight line for 20 feet toward a creature and hits it on that same turn, which it should with the Peace Cleric buff, and actually I'm going to recommend that you use the Familiar's help for your steed at this point, because it hits a little harder than your Primal Companion. So anyway, it will have advantage, it will have the Peace Cleric buff, Emboldening Bond buff, and so it should land that attack. If and when it does on that charge, then the enemy has to make a saving throw, or they're knocked prone, and if they get knocked prone, then the Warhorse gets to make a second attack against them, with advantage, obviously, because it's prone, right? So the target has to succeed on a strength save of 14, or be knocked prone, and to give us that extra attack. 14 isn't super high. There's no guarantee that this is going to work every time, right? That they are going to fail their save. And there's not a real easy way for purposes of number crunching to figure out if they are and how they will. It depends on the creature you're attacking and what their plus to strength save is. I'm just going to assume, for the sake of ease of number crunching, that half the time they're going to save and we'll get that extra attack, and half the time they will fail their save and we'll get that extra attack, half the time they won't. And now your Wildfire Spirit gets to blink away 2 charging companions every round, and it's just that much cooler and more mobile and blinky and fun. So for my other magical secrets, I'm going to take the Aid spell. It's one of the best non-concentration buffs out there. It only works on 3 creatures. You don't upcast it for more creatures. So I'm probably leaving the Primal Companion out, since he does the least amount of damage and he's the easiest to bring back if he dies, because it's just a first level spell slot. Sorry, Swinub, you're getting the shaft here. But anyway, it raises, when you cast the Aid spell, it raises the creature's max hit points by 5 and then gives them 5 more hit points, so topping them off, right? And keep in mind, this is not temporary hit points, so it stacks with the temporary hit points that you get from motivational speech. You can upcast it for more hit points, higher max, and topping them off. So your pets are actually, if you're using all of these spells to buff them, they are quite a bit beefier now. So definitely expect your Dungeon Master to start targeting them more if they haven't been thus far. Level 13 damage report. So we've got our full roster of five pets, right? The Familiar, the Primal Companion, the Wildfire Spirit, the Summoned Land Beast, and the Found Steed, the Warhorse. With a 6th level spell slot, which we have now, your Summoned Beast will be making 3 attacks per turn. I'm assuming that your horse is getting off their charge attack every time, that your Primal Companion is getting their charge attack off every time. Again, I'm switching advantage from the Primal Companion to the Warhorse, the hoot hoot advantage help to the Warhorse there. And we're going forward under that assumption. When your enemy has an armor class of 10 and a plus 0 to their dex save, you're doing 92 damage per round on average. And against a 17 armor class and a plus 7 to their dex save, a 74 damage per round. Very, very nice. You've almost hit the centennial barrier at level 13. At level 14, well, if you're going to play this companion until level 19 or 20, then I would recommend, if you're okay with it, if your Dungeon Master is okay with it, going Sorcerer here to get another pet. I'm assuming that you're not going to be doing that, and that we're going to push on with Bard, and you'll see why in a minute. You get 4th level Bard spells as a Bard level 7. Same rules apply. Focus on out of combat, ritual, and reaction spells. Level 15, you are a Bard 8, and you get another ability score increase. Oh my goodness. It's like raining ability score increases over here. We've had 2 the whole game. I would probably buff Wisdom to an 18 to give a little bump to your plus to hit for your Summoned Beast and your Primal Companion, and to increase the difficulty check of your Wildfire Spirit damage. At level 16, you are a Bard 9. You get 5th level Bard spells. Same rules apply as always. Again, we just don't have a lot of actions and bonus actions. At least I'm not assuming that we are, because we're having our pets make attacks for us. So at level 17, we are a Bard 10. We get another round of expertise, which is great for our skills that we are proficient in. And we now have 8th level spell slots, which means your Summoned Beast can attack 4 times per round when you use it, and it's doing like half of your damage. So do everything you can to keep that thing alive for sure, that little Persian. And we get more magical secrets. So now we get to pick a 5th level spell or lower from any other class. The first thing that we're going to do is take the Find Greater Steed spell from the Paladin spell list. And so I'm very sorry to our Warhorse, to our Ponyta, or Mudsdale. Oof. But Find Greater Steed is a nice upgrade. So most people would go Griffin here, because Griffins can fly, first of all, amazing, and it gets a multi-attack. But not us. We get a freaking rhinoceros. Or how about a rhyhorn? And why are we taking that? Well, because it's freaking amazing. And like the Warhorse and the Primal Companion, the Rhino gets a charge attack. Only now, as long as we move 20 feet in a straight line and the attack lands, we just automatically do bonus damage. We don't have to see if they fail their strength save or anything. And it's 4d8 plus 5, which is a lot on a single charge attack from our mount. We do still get to see if they get knocked prone, and it's a difficulty check of 15, so it's better. And of course, everyone benefits when an enemy is knocked prone, except for someone trying to attack them from ranged. So that's a nice perk. And of course, we'll be doing the same trick then with the Rhino that we were doing with the Wildfire Spirit, right? To try and ensure a charge attack for them every single round. For the second magical secrets, there's a couple good options. Either Warding Bond, which gives a +1 AC to one of your companions, and then when they take damage, you take the same amount of damage. So they're resistant to all damage, but then you take that damage, right? And so it increases their survivability. I'm a little nervous about that because it's just going to be more opportunities for me to lose concentration. It's definitely worth considering. I would probably prefer Death Ward. When a target would drop to 0 hit points, it instead drops to 1, and effects that would kill it outright are negated. Neither of these require your concentration. Warding Bond only lasts an hour, but Death Ward lasts 8 hours, so it's just a little more easy to use and sort of get the benefit from it. It just feels a little better in a pinch to me. But you choose the one that you think is going to be better for you. Final damage report at level 17. So again, your Primal Companion is making 1 charge attack without advantage. But with the Emboldening Bond, Wildfire Spirits getting off their AoE on 2 targets, hopefully, right? They won't always. Sometimes it'll be more. Summoned Beast is making 4 attacks with advantage, in my assumption, because they're standing next to an ally. And your Rhino is getting 1 charge attack per turn with advantage from your Owl. Against an enemy with a 10 armor class and a +0 to their dex save, it's 127 damage on average. And against an enemy with an 18 armor class and a +8 to their dex save, it's still over 100. It's 104. And I am flabbergasted. Final thoughts. Guys, what the crap just happened? For those who watched my shorts episode, shorts number 3, yesterday that I released as of this recording, about sustained DPR power rankings of my builds thus far. This build just knocked off the current, or previous, I should say, number 5 build of all-time sustained damage per round, the Swashbuckler, with an average damage per round of 62 on this Pokemon trainer. And the character themselves never even does damage to anything. This would be so fun to play in game. So many great opportunities for fun role play and cute, endearing interactions and hilarious moments. But whether it works or not is going to be, as I've said, fairly dependent on your Dungeon Master. Even when you get abilities to buff them and make them beefier and tankier kind of later on, they're still going to be fairly vulnerable and fragile, but especially in the early game. The argument that I would make to my DM, unfortunately they're all watching this, but anyway, would be, look, these are my weapons. This is the only way that I have to do damage, right? You wouldn't intentionally try to destroy the barbarian's halberd, would you? Don't hurt my pets. They're cute and adorable and fuzzy, and I'd give them big puppy dog eyes and hope that they would at least, try to rein it back a little bit and not focus my pets too much. That would be my hope. Again, there are things you can do to try and counter that, and you can bring every single one of them back without too much difficulty. It's generally a spell, casting of a spell. And so, but again, like I've said, make sure that your pets are attacking the thing that your other players at your table are attacking, so that at least your DM has options, right? It's not just, there's a bunch of creatures surrounding me, of course I'm going to attack one of them. But if there's a bunch of creatures and also a fighter and a rogue, well, maybe, at least I've got options, right? So anyway, make sure that you're doing that. Let's see, if you do find that your pets are dying a lot in combat and you're running out of spell slots and it's just very difficult for you, you might need to, rethink this, and instead of taking bard levels, just go more ranger levels and get that Primal Companion to be a pretty decent tank. And the damage would be okay. If you got to ranger 11, it would get an extra attack, and your overall damage is going to take a hit, but you've got a pretty good little damage soak and a tanky little companion there in your Primal Companion. So that's definitely an option. One last thing that I do need to mention is this build does have the potential to be a huge pain for the other players at your table, right? I mean, each round you're making 3 to 7 attacks from separate creatures, each with its own stat block. There's going to be saving throws that enemies are going to need to be making. They all have different plus to hit numbers. They all have different damage numbers, save or take damage numbers, charge for extra damage numbers, etc., etc. It's a lot to keep track of. If you're not on your game, your friends that you're playing this game with are going to be really annoyed with you. So be on your game. Have all of your little pets' stats in front of you all the time. Try and memorize them. Maybe consider pre-rolling the attacks that they're going to be making before it's even your turn, so you can just throw out numbers to your DM. Even have a cheat sheet that says, to remind yourself, okay, on my turn, step 1, yell Flareon. Step 2, make my charge attack. Step 3, so that you're not having to kind of constantly think and go back to, I can't remember, what do I do next, right? If you can do that, and if your DM is willing to run with you on this character, you have a little platoon of beasts and spirits charging into combat, teleporting away, leaving fire in their wake, knocking enemies prone, causing mass destruction, and all of this time, your character never lifts a single finger to harm an enemy, simply hurling insults at them from the sidelines. And it's so fun, and I just love it. So anyway, that's our show for the week. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. I spent, I think, more time on this character build than any other character I've ever done, probably twice as much for that matter, but I had a lot of fun with it. Thanks for watching. Please do check out the D&D subreddit. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, and of course, please subscribe and like and share if you enjoyed the show. And as always, if you have a build that you would like to see me do an episode on, let me know, and give me as much detail as you can on it, and what role you want it to play and how you think it should be built, and I will do my best to optimize it for you. Thanks, guys. Love you. Hope you have a fantastic day, and we will see you soon.